Welcome. Thank you for joining us for our next edition of our 49er Industry Chat. We're going to pause as we welcome our guests into the webinar today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Noemi Alvara, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement here at California State University, Long Beach. We thank you for joining us today. Before we start, I just want to let you know this session is being recorded and it will live on our website at csulb.edu/alumni. Also, we encourage you to use our Q&A box located above or below your screen to submit any questions for our guest speaker today. And now it's my honor to introduce our moderator for the chat. Our moderator today is Lorna Larson. Lorna is a Beach grad graduating in 2011 with a degree in performance and currently works in the alumni team as a programs coordinator. Thank you, Lorna, for joining us today and moderating the chat. And now I turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Noemi, for that introduction. And it's now my pleasure to introduce our industry chat host today, Ms. Lorna Larson. The chat is titled, "Oh, the Places You'll Go with a Career in Human Resources and BioTech." So Lorna's experience includes organizational development, training development, talent acquisition, compensation and benefits, employee relations, and international human resources. She is an experienced leader who has vision and passion for people. In her past roles, Lorna has developed and executed organizational strategies, both to start up and turn around organizations across industries, including pharmaceutical, medical device, manufacturing, financial services, and internet commerce. Her track record of building business-specific solutions includes experience in the US, Europe, Latin America, and Asia Pacific. Her undergraduate degrees from the College of Business at Cal State Long Beach with an emphasis on human resources. She has earned SPHR and CCP designations and serves as a corporate mentor for business students at CSULB. So please join me in welcoming today's 49er Industry Chat host, Lorna Larson. How are you doing, Lorna?
Great, thank you so much. I am so happy to be here.
Great, we're so glad to have you today. So I know that you have a presentation to share with us and everything that kind of starts from the beginning, why you chose Cal State Long Beach, about your journey here and after graduating from Cal State Long Beach. So if you'd like to go ahead and share your screen, we can definitely get started with that as well.
Let's see, is that clear?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay, super.
All set, yeah.
Okay. Well, I am currently head of human resources for Avid Bioservices. We are a biotech company in Tustin, California. And during my career, as Alana mentioned, I've worked for both pharmaceuticals, medical device, biotech, as well as a few other industries along the way. But let me go back to the beginning and how my career started, why I chose Cal State Long Beach, and go from there. So I was the first in my family to attend college, and my parents were retiring at the time. They were originally from a very small town in South Dakota, I was basically on my own to self-fund college as they were looking to return to the state of South Dakota to retire in a farming community. So I looked for a college or university that was broad because I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to be after college. And so I wanted to have a very broad experience in case my original choice was not exactly going to work out, or I wanted to change majors along the way, or at least take classes in other areas. I was also looking for something that was affordable and something where I could basically live on campus, walk to class, and I didn't have to worry about transportation because I didn't own a car at the time. I had my trusty bicycle, and roller skates. And that was the extent of my transportation, except for public transportation at the time. So I was fortunate enough to be accepted to Cal State Long Beach, and quickly decided to focus on business as my major. And I had part-time roles which really influenced my later career. First as a department assistant on campus in the School of Engineering, which was very helpful for that pocket money that I needed at the time. And also later on as a resident assistant. And so actually the housing that I experienced is still there on campus, Parkside, although I know during COVID that the campuses had to go with other means for residential students. So I later earned my way as a resident assistant, which allowed me to pay for room and board. And then I was working on my business major, and early on decided to go into accounting because I knew that companies, businesses always needed accountants, and I was mathematically oriented. So I thought that that was my best opportunity. And I really liked the business curriculum at Cal State Long Beach because there was the core classes, and then I could take my specialized classes in accounting. And because I made that decision early on, then as I was taking my GE classes, I was also taking my core business classes and starting on my way to be an accountant. So you may wonder what happened. How did I end up in human resources? Well, as I became going into my senior year, I was talking to all my friends at Beta Alpha Psi because I was part of the accounting association, and asked them, what are you doing as an accountant? And they said, oh, I am ticking and tying, really putting numbers together. And I said, oh, I thought accounting needed good people skills. Where does the people skills come in? And they said, oh, well, I need to ask people for this record or that record. And they really don't like giving those records to me as someone in public accounting who's sort of overseeing them. And so I need to have good people skills because they're not very happy with my requests. And I thought, oh no, I have totally chosen the wrong major because I don't like this reconciliation part of accounting. I like the theoretical part. And I also didn't think about that was how my people skills would be used. I really liked the people in accounting who were the recruiters who were talking to us at Meet the Firms night and things like that. So I went to one of my accounting professors and I talked to that person about my concern. I said, I really don't want to be an accountant. I have spent all my time doing accounting courses. Matter of fact, I only have a couple left, and I'm not quite sure what to do. And it was really a personal crisis for me. And my professor, one of my labor relations professors, said, well, what classes do you like? And I said, well, I really like my minor classes in human resources, but I'm not sure if I can get a job in human resources. And he said, I think you should do what you really enjoy doing. So fortunately, since I had my core business classes done, I was able to change my minor to my major and continue on in human resources and only spend an additional semester at Cal State Long Beach, which was very important to me since I was financing my education and wanted to make sure and moderate my investment there. So then my next choice was, how do I get that first job? And I had learned a lot being in Beta Alpha Psi, the accounting society, because they had a lot of internships. And so I immediately was involved in the Society of Human Resources Management chapter that was on campus. And actually there still is a chapter on campus. And I really tried to get an internship in human resources. And I was so fortunate because at one of those meetings, I met a person who would be my future boss and a great mentor who worked at that time at a small company in Irvine called Allergan that later became very famous for not only their eye drops and for their various pharmaceutical products, but also for a little cosmetic product called Botox that later made oodles of money for the company. So I ended up doing an internship at Allergan. Their picture is in the bottom corner of my slide. And at that time, I was able to go from being that intern to actually a full-time job during my last semester at Cal State Long Beach. So I worked at the company, who fortunately had a van pool program, so I still didn't need a car, and worked there in the compensation and benefits area. And during that time, I think that one of the questions that people always have is, well, how do you go up the ladder? How do you become a manager, or maybe a director, or maybe even a vice president of human resources? And during my time at Allergan, we were bought by an even larger company called SmithKline, GlaxoSmithKline today. And our head of human resources had a very nice outline of a career path for someone in human resources. And they said that there's basically several specialties in human resources. And if you experience each of these specialties, then you're a likely person to become a manager of human resources and a director, and maybe someday a leader in human resources. And I thought, this is a great idea. So what I did is I pursued each of those different areas in human resources. Basically, I started in benefits, moved over to compensation, then became a generalist for one of the small divisions of Allergan, and then went on to move into training and development. I was fortunate enough to travel to Latin America, Canada, and Asia Pacific in that role, doing management training and development for the managers at Allergan. And then at the end of that assignment, I was fortunate enough, because of having a strong international background, to actually become vice president of human resources for Asia Pacific for Allergan. And I moved overseas to Sydney, Australia for 5 years. In that role, I was fortunate to do startup manufacturing companies in China and in India, and hire management teams in Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, India, and in the Middle East. Oh yes, and in South Africa, just to throw in one more interesting place. So it was a great background in human resources. I was fortunate enough to really see my career accelerate as the company's career accelerated. So that was a very important a coincidence for me that I chose a company that was growing very rapidly. During that time, Allergan had a great educational assistance program. So I also received my master's degree at Pepperdine that was paid for by the company. And then, as mentioned before, I earned my certified compensation professional certificate, and also my certification as a senior professional in human resources management through the Society of Human Resources Management. So that is my early career. That benefits and wellness perspective, both in the US and internationally, was critical then in being chosen for the compensation and benefits role. And then that led to my generalist role and also my other roles in human resources. One of the things I was fortunate enough at Allergan was to really experience a company growing and developing rapidly. And so because I was able to move from division to division, I was able to help grow divisions within the company and see how to rapidly grow an organization, how to choose a leadership group that could develop not only the management team, but also the employees within the division. From there, I returned to the US and had met with some executive search people, as you do when you're in senior positions. And they had encouraged me to broaden my horizons and see if there was other industries that I would enjoy. And I chose to join the Orange County information companies that is probably more known to you as the Orange County Register and their associated magazines and website. And that was really new in the days of websites and starting to deliver news via the internet instead of being print publications. And that was a great organization to be part of because it really needed to turn around. It was not making money. It was family owned at the time and was the financials, because they were held close by the family, were not known to the organization at large. People didn't realize that the company was losing money as a print publication. But what it allowed the management team to do was to, one, have the first non-family leader of an organization, and also then to educate the employees in terms of financial for an organization. And basically, the employees helped to turn the company around and move towards profitability. So it was a important assignment for me to not only be part of a growing organization, but then to be part of a startup, because you really need both skills in today's industry, because companies are growing up and then retrenching again and then growing again. So there's that constant change, and that helped me understand what was needed during both of those times. Unfortunately, 9/11 happened as I was at that company, which also was a terrible financial hit for the publication side of the organization. And so from there, I decided to leave the organization and join an up-and-coming internet company. And so once again, I was able to scale up an organization. We went from 200 people to 500 people over a very short period of time. And unfortunately, we hit the internet bubble. And so I left that organization eventually and moved to financial services, which was also scaling up at that point. I joined that company and then started to reevaluate my career and what I really loved to do. And what I realized is that biotech and pharmaceuticals, which had been part of my life for 20 years with Allergan, was a very important part. And I really missed that part about being part of a company that improved patient lives. So I started to relook at where my career had gone, and I started to look for another pharmaceutical company. And I was fortunate enough to join Elan Pharmaceuticals and become part of their HR staff. And that was very important to me because Elan specialized in MS and also in Alzheimer's research. And I had just lost a family member to Alzheimer's, so that was a cause that was near and dear to my heart. And I think that if you're like me and not a scientist, one of the great things about human resources is that you can help find great scientists to help move forward therapeutic opportunities for patients, even though maybe you can't do the science yourself. And so I worked for that for a number of years, and then eventually moved over to the company that I'm currently with, Avid Bioservices. And Avid originally was a innovator in terms of lung cancer therapies. And like many companies with new therapies, ours was not successful in clinical studies. So I moved over to the side of the business that does manufacturing of clinical products for many other pharmaceutical companies. So here we work on everything from COVID-19 to Alzheimer's drugs to future therapies for orphan drug diseases like Farber's disease. And so it's a great opportunity to use all of my HR skills to, one, help to recruit and develop, pay people properly, have great benefits, and be able to really utilize all of those HR skills in terms of what I do. I think that the other half of what I do is I try to help in the community. So I've been a board member for nonprofits, and also I'm also been a leader in Girl Scouts and helped in Boy Scouts as my family has grown. And then currently I serve as a mentor at Cal State Long Beach. So just trying to also help others who this may be their first college experience, who also may be first in their family to go to college, and help to provide a career path for them in whatever area of business that they are experiencing. I also have a great loyalty to Cal State Long Beach. So I look to Cal State Long Beach as an opportunity to get great people in both human resources and in the biotech areas, be it a biology major, a chemistry major, or a chemical engineering major, or a biomedical engineer, because those are all specialties that we use here at Avid Bioservices. Last summer, we had 6 interns from the chemical engineering department, and we have had up to 24 interns from various programs at Cal State Long Beach. So that's a little bit about me, my career path, what I'm doing today, and I'm open for questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Lorna. It's been great hearing about your career path, and it sounds like the work that you do is just really rewarding for you on like a personal level too. And of course, we appreciate how much you've helped out Cal State Long Beach students as a mentor and in hiring and internships. As a reminder, if you're watching this live, you can submit a question in the Q&A box if you would like. I do have some questions that are coming through. So Lorna, what advice do you have for students that are not as involved on campus and are looking for internships? Are there any skills you think they should work on during this time?
I think that as an intern, that's really, really important. It got me my first job. I see that it gets so many people their first foot in the door. And as many students know, they're looking at the want ads and it says, oh, we want 2 to 3 years of experience. But if you have an internship, a lot of times the recruiter will give you the benefit of the doubt and say, yes, I want to, you have some experience. Let me start you in our company. I think too, a strong resume, not necessarily flowery, but one that is straightforward, and also any experience that you've had to put it in general terms. So rather than to say, I worked on a particular project, to put it in terms of, you know, I learned from this project customer service, or I learned how to analyze financials with a company, or I understand the role marketing plays in an organization. It's important to make sure that your skills are generic, because someone may not understand the particular project or the particular software that you might have used. So it's important that an employer see you as fitting into their organization.
And you shared a bit about your higher education journey and the various degrees and certifications that you've pursued. Were those required to grow in your field? And which degree or certification do you feel gave you the most advantage in your career?
I think that, of course, the undergraduate degree was essential. And I think that it's important in most cases, unless you're focused on a PhD scientist path. I think it's important to get about 5 years of experience before going into a master's program, because otherwise you really don't have any real experience to to focus on in terms of your business cases. And I think that the important part is, for me, was really getting my compensation and benefits certification as a certified compensational professional, and that's with World at Work now is the name of the organization. If you are not focused on a particular area like compensation and benefits, I think that the SHRM, the Society of Human Resources Management certifications, which start with the PHR and then the SPHR, or their comparable ones, are critical in order to be that head and shoulders above. So to take those, if you're interested in human resources, to take those as soon as you can upon graduation, getting some basic business experience, and then to get that certification, because the PHR sets you above, and then later on the SPHR. The master's degree, and I sort of debated whether to get a master's degree in OD or to get a general business MBA. And what I found in terms of my career aspirations is I wanted to be a senior leader in human resources, to head up a function for an organization, be that small or large. And so an MBA was most applicable because it helps me interconnect rather with all the various functions in the organization. I also think that my accounting classes were really essential because a lot of times you are thrown into, as the head of human resources, into budgets and into helping the organization hit certain financial targets. And if you can't speak the language of accounting, then you can't speak the language of business. You don't understand what accrual is, what generates revenue, what doesn't generate revenue. And that's very, very important. So that's critical in terms of if you want to go to a senior level. If I wanted to stay in training and development, then at a large company, which Allergan was, the top person in that function had a PhD in OD, and they had also a master's in that area. So if you want to be very specialized in human resources and training and development, then really that PhD is the focus. If you want to be a generalist, head of a broad organization, then an MBA is more important. And early on in your career, having that SHRM certificate, that PHR, is also puts you head and shoulders above other candidates.
Wow. Well, thank you for that, for getting very specific and sharing how, different certifications, degrees can lead to different paths. I'm sure the listeners will appreciate that. So also, you mentioned you were a first generation college student. How did you learn the confidence to explore, get involved, and network? It sounds like many of the connections you made as a student set you up as an intern and then in your professional career.
Yeah, I think that there were two things. I think that actually I have to tip my hat again to the Accounting Society, because they had Meet the Firms nights where they talked about how you network and things like that. And so I thought, oh, I need to be able to talk to these recruiters at these different financial firms. And so that helped me think about networking skills, how to start a conversation, things like that. My background was very modest. My father was a custodian. My mother was a housekeeper. And so they had no idea what I was doing for a living. My father, he's one of the kindest men you'd ever meet, but he always thought I was a secretary somewhere. And so that was sort of, and he was so happy that I was in business, but he had no idea what human resources was and all of those kinds of things. So I think if I told him I work with people who manage bioreactors, he'd probably go crazy these days. And here's a few pictures of our bioreactors in the foreground. So I think that was part of it. I think being involved in on-campus activities through the Career Planning Center, where you can learn to start a conversation and do that quick elevator speech, and to be that person who has a few questions in your pocket that you can ask someone, and to do homework ahead of time. If you're interviewing with a company, know about that company, read their website, think about, oh, what can I ask them about the future or about their current plans? So if I were looking at Avid, we have a investor relations page that tells you the latest news, to listen to a shareholder call for the company that you're going to. If it's a public company that you're interviewing with, it will tell you so much about what's going on with the company. And it's something that the average candidate doesn't do. So to read the website, listen to an investor call, understand what is in the near term and far term for that company. So for Avid, for example, we were just named to the Fortune 600. That's a pretty big deal.
Wow.
And so our stock price has gone from $2.25 a few years ago to over $30 a share this week. So it's as an applicant, I would expect someone to be familiar a little bit with our financials, even if it's just to say, wow, you guys have really grown. You've really, your stock price has increased tremendously. That tells me that you're interested in the company.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great advice too. Hopefully everyone will take a page out of that book. And yeah, it's so important, no matter what company you're applying to do your research, go on their website, do everything you can to be prepared for that interview. So I have another question. Working in a variety of industries as you have, how critical is it to be familiar and informed on the industry side to complement your HR skill set?
Oh, I think it's tremendously important. So, for example, our company, we just made a public announcement that we were opening a division in viral vectors, which is uses the same kind of manufacturing mammalian cell technology that we currently use in our organization. And ironically, that mammalian cell process is one that we all know today under the name of monoclonal antibodies. Well, that's what Botox is. And it's a monoclonal antibody that was first pursued by Allergan for the use in Botox. And understanding that process and also the scientists that are involved in that is so important, because I'm recruiting those people. So I need to be able to understand what that's about. And a lot of my HR jobs were really, people were looking at me for my scientific knowledge because of my exposure to Botox and that manufacturing. And that became a leading force in why I was recruited to different biotech companies. And even my company today, that was the reason why I'm here, is because I had that knowledge of monoclonal antibodies and how they work, and how then that works into viral vectors. And so having a knowledge of the product, how the product is manufactured. And it's so easy, especially today, you can go on YouTube and say monoclonal antibodies, how are they manufactured, and see videos and understand the process. So if you're going to any company, it's so important to understand that. And because in HR, you're either going to be recruiting those folks, helping them to understand their compensation and benefits, to help them become better managers in terms of training and development. And it's both marrying your HR skills with those scientific skills that that is important.
Wow, sounds like you could get an honorary science degree as well.
I wished I could, but I'm nowhere as smart as our
No, yeah.
scientists. So yeah.
But as a follow-up to that, you've hired quite a few people in the last few months. What tangible skills and personable qualities are you and Avid looking for? Like what stands out to you?
Yeah, so I think that you're right. We've hired 60 people in the last 2 quarters, and I just looked at our outstanding list for our next 2 quarters, and it's running about 85 people. So myself and my HR staff are going to be terribly busy, and we are maintaining a very low turnover rate. So I think that that speaks to, one, people really enjoy working here. It's very dynamic work, and the kinds of people that we're focused on are really across the gambit. So for example, I'm going to be looking for another HR coordinator because we've got a lot of HR work to do. Please send your resume to me at this email address if you're interested. But also the scientific folks, everyone from new grads. We are looking for new grads at Cal State at Long Beach, December grads in biology, chemistry, chemical engineering. And then we also look for people in the IT area and in the accounting area and in project management. So all of those skills are important. And we are a contract manufacturing and development organization. So what that means is that scientists may be in a startup where they make a small test tube of something that they think this will cure cancer. And they come to us and they say, oh, we need to run clinical trials in phase 2, phase 3, all of the phases that you hear about when people talk about clinical trials. And that means they need to be able to scale up this little test tube of cells into basically 2,000 liter batches or 1,000 liter batches, like this particular machine. And so we're going to be doing that, and then oftentimes freezing that at, let's say, way below freezing. When you hear about the special refrigerators that are needed for things like COVID vaccines. And so you've got that technology here, and the people that not only need to support the manufacturing, but the people who need to check those on HPLC and be able to do ELISA, cell plate assays. And then you need the folks in accounting and the folks in IT who can help us all be networked, and HR folks. So we have a wide variety. I'd say it's probably 80% technical and 20% your general and administrative staff here.
Oh, okay. Wow. So I'm sure, you know, COVID has kept you all busy as one of the, you know, manufacturers. But how has it like affected the workplace, like in terms of were a lot of the staff moving remote, or how has that affected, you know, HR in general in your workplace?
Wow, it's been an amazing ride because we've needed to partner with the folks in environmental health and safety to, one, set up an infectious disease policy, and to decide what safeguards we needed for the organization. So first of all, we needed to decide what we were going to do if someone was sick, how we were going to do contact tracing within the organization, and set up a local laboratory where we could test people for COVID. And so it became incredibly important to do that quickly. So initially tests were 3 to 5 days, and that's just too long to wait to find out if other people have gotten COVID. So we sent as many people home as we could initially and to work remotely. And then for the people on site, we broadened our shifts so we could have fewer people start and continue over the period of time. So basically minimizing exposure for the people who were on site working in manufacturing and in quality. Of course, mandatory masks, and we also put in mandatory temperature checking. So we added that in right away, and we have a pretty neat system where you go, your picture comes up, and you know whether you've passed in terms of temperature. And that's not only good for COVID, but for any flu. You don't want to have someone sick on site when you're manufacturing drugs.
Yeah.
And so that was important to, one, decide on a policy, to decide on a practice, and then to be able to do the contact tracing and to be able to test folks. Currently, we still do contact tracing, currently testing. We have a 92% vaccination rate right now, with a few people who have, of course, either physical or religious exemptions. And then starting in the new year, we'll do the weekly testing for the folks who aren't vaccinated. So that's our current COVID policy and plan. And in some cases, we are federal contractors, so people who have gotten contracts, scientists through the various federal organizations then have come to us as subcontractors, so we have to be aligned with those requirements as well. And that goes into other areas such as equal opportunity employment, and being a diverse organization and an inclusive one, and making sure that we have policies that support that. So from a policy background, we not only have COVID, but we also have, of course, Equal Opportunity Employment Commission guidelines. And as well, our board is focusing on environment and what we're doing there as an organization, and how we are helping to reduce our waste. And also, you'll notice the final picture in this particular slide, which is our green team, hence their green t-shirts. And we participate in ocean cleanup as well, beach cleanup activities.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. Very thorough too. So also, how did you learn the protocols and procedures when you mentioned working abroad in all these different countries? And how did you acclimate to living in such diverse countries and learning those different protocols and procedures there?
There's some interesting books on cross-cultural organizations and how to operate abroad. So I use those tools and resources on those long plane rides between places to make sure that I was up to date in terms of the culture and how to operate in the particular environment, sort of the do's and don'ts of polite international manners, I guess I would say. And early on in my career, actually, when I was in benefits, I had helped with our expatriates, our employees who were living abroad for Allergan, which gave me an appreciation of the challenges that people have when they live overseas. And also, I had an interesting high school experience where I was actually chosen by a church group I belonged to be a representative to an international conference that was held in the UK when I was 16. So those many decades ago started actually my international career, as I went to that conference to represent the US along with two other individuals. And between the three of us, we not only represented the US at the conference, we traveled all through the UK. Each of us had a different sort of path that we took, but it made me appreciate early on in my life that things can be done a lot differently in other places. And so I really took that to heart when I was working in benefits and working on international benefits, helping people to relocate abroad. And then a further example of that was when I actually worked abroad myself, because a lot of times when you help people move abroad, you sort of go through a checklist and everything, and you assume that everything's going to go right. And for myself, when I moved with my husband to Australia, that was where we were based. He was working on his PhD, and I went to work then for Allergan, helping to set up their Asia Pacific organization. But we had initially, I had packed just a suitcase of a few things because I thought in a week or two, I would receive my a small air freight. And I thought, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to put all my clothing, all my suits, everything in this air freight, which you were allowed for international moves. And then I was going to be all set. And what happened was there was a mix-up with the packing company, and they thought that this small box of dishes was what I needed in 2 weeks. So there I was in Australia with one suitcase of clothes for the next 2 months, while our shipment went overseas on a ship. Thank God there's not the supply chain issues that we have today of getting ships into ports.
Right.
But then I probably would have been 6 months with one suitcase. But it was really an exercise in flexibility with those outfits while I was waiting for my clothes to arrive. And it's just, you learn to be more flexible, and you learn to appreciate other customs and other ways where there is a different way to get gas, a different way to write a check,
Right,
different
yeah.
food to eat, different timetables for people. It's just a different way of living, and I think it positively impacted not only my life as a global citizen, but probably how I practice HR, because it helps you appreciate cultural differences across an organization.
Yeah, no, that's so true, and such a great point also. And I'm sure we could all take that, that need to be flexible and apply that to a lot of aspects of our lives. So thank you for sharing that and that story. So we are coming up against time here, but I just wanted to ask, what's the most rewarding part of your work?
I think being able to improve patient lives, especially when you think about treatments for areas like cancer. A cancer patient has no time, and all the rest of us have lots of time. So in HR, if we can help that person to have more time, that's immensely rewarding. And that goes for any therapeutic area.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And any final thoughts that you wanted to leave our listeners with?
Well, if you know of anyone who's interested in a career in biotech, I have included our website, which is www.avidbio.com/careers. And also my personal email is llarson@avidbio.com, and glad to refer resumes on in the organization or to answer any questions that come to mind after this Zoom call.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lorna. And yeah, hopefully you've taken down that site and email there. And if you do apply, make sure you research the position and watch your YouTube videos and all of that, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you again so much, Lorna. I'm going to turn it back to Noemi to take us out here.
Thank you, Lorna, so much for sharing your, your passion for your expertise, and just thank you so much for also providing, the internships and jobs to our alumni and our students out there. We really appreciate you. And thank you, Lorna. It was a great conversation, very engaging. Again, thank you all for attending. If you'd like to learn about our future chats, please visit our website or follow us on social media. We thank you for attending today.